fam. Welcome to another episode of Good, Bad, and Ugly about real estate. I have a great guest for you, someone who's new to me as well, so we're going to get to know him together. My friend Micah.
Thanks for having me, man.
So what happens when you have the volume down on your phone? You can't hear the applause.
That was nice. I like that.
Thank you. So as I said, me and Micah are new friends. Just met him about 5 minutes before introducing him to you guys. So we're going to get to know him together. So Micah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what you do and if it's involved with real estate or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly involved with real estate. Gosh, man, I always start at, the foundational things. I'm a husband, going on 18 years in a couple days here. I've got 4 kids.
Okay.
And yeah, man, I bumped around doing a bunch of different things. But about 10 years ago, I bought my first long-term buy and holds. And it's basically been iterations of moving away from a normal W-2 into about 5 years ago or so. Like with everything, I do real estate full-time, but I also provide a service to real estate investors. And that is my company, US Lead List there. And basically, we're a data aggregation company where we align when someone passes away and if they own real estate and provide that kind of as a subscription service by the county. So
nice. All 50 states, or are you in a certain region?
Nope, entire nation. So basically, we build a national file every single month and then provide that to all of our subscribers. And we're across all of those 3,200 counties across the U.S.
Awesome. So let's kind of dig into that a little bit. Do you have different plans for your subscriptions? Is it like regional, state, or does everybody have to buy the nationwide program?
No, they don't have to buy nationwide. We do it by the county. And so, folks basically kind of can sign up to one county, multiple counties, or, the entire state or national. I haven't had anyone go in all national yet. That'd be cool. Hopefully someone on here listening is like, yeah, that sounds like a great plan.
Well, I belong to multiple communities, right? So if I could be one of the persons like do it one national and then I can just kind of feed people, that would be a great service to have. So something I'll keep in mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it comes down to the why. Like, okay, like great, you have this data, you generate this list monthly. That's real cool. But on the flip side, like, why would you take the time to market to these folks? You're inserting yourself into this painful place. They just lost someone. And what I've found, and I know this personally, like, my mother-in-law just passed away a couple months ago. My dad's reeling from the death, and one of the biggest problems for him is, what am I going to do with my house? Like, I need to transition into some kind of long-term care, and you end up kind of having to be a little bit of a Sherpa for these folks, helping get them to a place where like they feel good about moving on from their property into kind of their next stage of life. Sometimes that takes a week. Sometimes that takes years, but these are long-term leads that, for me and all the data that I have and in helping other people as well, lead to the most profitable deals that I see consistently.
Awesome. So, you have 2 different sides of your businesses. What drew you to aggregating data for other people? Most people enjoy just doing a fix and flip or, buying whole properties. What brought you to providing that type of service?
It was a transition, actually. So during COVID, I used to own a construction company. I had, I think 8 or 9 doors that I was, managing, renting out. And I hurt my back really bad. And those doors weren't providing enough cash flow to kind of keep me going. And so I had closed down my construction company, and I just started scratching my head, like, what am I going to do now? How am I going to provide for my family? How am I going to show up the way I need to as a provider? And so, what I started doing was basically vetting companies that I could run that didn't take, a sound physical body, because I didn't have that at the time. And I could provide in the same means. And so I vetted over 100 companies and eventually landed on US lead list. So the two guys who were the former owners in their 70s looking to move on, and I showed up, and it was already integrated with what I liked, which is real estate. And now I just get to help, I get to do it myself. I used my list and my data locally in Wisconsin where I'm at, but I also get to help other people do the same thing in their markets. And so it's kind of a compounding effect.
Awesome. So you said you were in construction before. Did that kind of help you with your beginning into real estate, or where did that kind of passion come from?
I mean, yeah, it did definitely help. I just always liked building things to, create, kind of put pieces together and make something beautiful. That was always exciting for me. And it really helped initially on those two properties that I had. Let's see, 2015, I bought a 4-unit for, I think it was $52,000. And then I bought a 5-unit for 90. And that was back when you could still get great deals on the MLS. Those were both on-market properties.
Nice.
But as you can imagine, they're pretty run down. And so I would just, as a tenant left, I would renovate, make it nicer, up rents, and increase the overall value of the property by the rent that it brought in. And so definitely integrated into what I was doing. But, it's a grind. I was managing them, I was renovating, I was doing all those things. And it turned into another job, it felt like. And so for me, that was great. It was, I had really big financial wins. And it's not about finances, too. It's kind of about owning your own, destiny, right? You're creating the life that you want. And so then that just gave me a taste for like trying to decide what kind of life I wanted. And, doing construction, it's fun, it's satisfying, but for me, it was a season and something that couldn't last forever. And I didn't want to have it last forever. I want to be spry, fit, able for my family, for my kids, for the hobbies that I love to do. And I didn't see construction, enabling me in later life to do so.
You mean you don't want that wear and tear on the body, so that you have all those aches and pains?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's right, man. I am a finite resource. I had to learn that the hard way when I was, like I said, when I hurt my back, I was horizontal for like 6 months. And,
wow,
that's tough,
Yeah.
Especially as a man, a dad, a provider, to not be able to do anything. Kind of, it shifts your focus a little bit.
Absolutely. I have different levels of people that watch the show. I always say show. I don't episode podcast.
This is a show. I feel like
We'll call it a show.
You had people clapping for me, bro. Come
There
on.
you go. We'll call it a show. I must stay with show because it seems like that's the word I always use when I say this. So, given the different experiences, some people would say, well, how did you get into your first deal? Because a lot of people don't know how to even like purchase property or find the money because people are broke or don't have a lot of savings. So can you kind of talk to us and share with us how you were able to acquire your first property and make a little bit of money on the side at the end?
Yeah, at the beginning, it was delayed gratification. I mean, really, like I had 3 kids when I was really young. I had my first kid when I was 21, and then every 2 years after that, I had another one. And so, my life was crazy. I was young. I was working in restaurants. I was doing random jobs. I was just grinding, hustling. But I had the wherewithal to not spend all of my money every month, put some aside, knowing that I was gonna find a use for it that could be basically level up my aptitude to make money, to get financial freedom. And so it really was just delayed gratification. It's not sexy. It's not cool. It's not exciting, but basically put money by, saved up. I bought those with, 20% down, both of those initial properties.
Yeah.
And since then, there's a lot easier routes to kind of work those angles now. We talked about hard money lending or transactional lending. And, when I started, I didn't know I had no idea what wholesaling was. I
Right.
just, for me, I was like, I just want to have property. I want to have, real estate that makes me money. And so now with there's a lot more models that you can monetize, make money, and get real estate to work with you without having as much skin in the game.
Right.
That's a double-edged sword, right? If you're taking other people's money to buy property, you have to know what you're doing. And so being able to underwrite deals, know what real profit is, and sign your name when you're putting yourself in a position to actually make money. Because for
Right.
me, I firmly believe, and I think any investor worth their salt would say, the money's in the buy. So if you're buying right, you're going to make money at the end of every situation in real estate. If
Sure.
you don't know how to buy properly, you're going to be in trouble.
That is a true statement. What people don't understand is you can get into this with little to no money or skin in the game, I should say. But it's going to cost you, right? It's at a cost because the person that you're borrowing their money is taking a large risk in you, um, with having either little to no money into the deal. So um, that is something that I've learned through my journey. Um, how have you been able to benefit? You say that you took over the company U.S. Leads list, but you're using it locally. Can you just share with us a story that because of that your list kind of highlights you a little bit? Um,
Yeah, I've got a couple good stories. I mean, one thing about working with people, leads that where death is kind of the crux, is that you know you have, I guess, you have to position yourself as, how can I help? Okay, like that's really the place where I operate from when I'm dealing with these people. And so let's see, last trying to remember, it took a long time to close this deal, but I think it was last winter, or 2 winters ago, actually. It's like
okay.
18 months ago. I sent this guy a letter. His sister had passed away. He owned part of 4 acres, basically right downtown Madison. But his sister owned the other part, and that's how he ended up on my list. So I sent him a letter. He was, he inherited that. And I didn't hear anything. He wrote me a letter back. Almost no one writes me a letter back. Everyone, they call way easier to call the number.
Right.
He writes me a letter. So he's like, well, what would you offer for this? And so I wrote him a letter back. I didn't hear back for months. And, I started researching the property. I'm like, man, at first I'm like, I don't know even how to comp this. I don't know what it is, but 4 acres in the middle of a really, really nice residential neighborhood in
Sure.
Madison, Wisconsin. I'm like, if this could get zoned for multifamily, if I could figure out how I could develop this parcel, all the houses were rough. They were pretty chunky. That would be a really big upside and a huge value add for this guy who's trying to sell it, and then for me in the middle, and ultimately the end developer on the other side. And so once I kind of put that together, I drove to this guy's house, knocked on his door, no answer. I did it 3 more times, finally got a hold of this guy, face to face. And I was like, hey, you sent me a letter back to a letter that I sent to you. I wrote you, but I haven't heard. Tell me what the situation is, like, what's going on with this property. And so he explained what I already shared. His sister passed away, and he's looking for offers. Assessed value for the combined properties, I think it was like 700,000 or something like that.
Right.
And, after talking with this guy for a long time, it was clear he just kind of wanted a price. So I was like, well, I could do 550,000. I cut a good chunk off of the assessed value, and knew I could make a spread on that. And he's just, he's this small guy, very, very passive demeanor. And he just starts laughing at me. It's like, we're so far apart. You don't, like, there's no way. I'm like, okay. I kind of left, tail between my legs. So I come back, and I was like, well, what would you think about 7? And, basically the same thing happened. I made this guy like 7 or 8 offers. Finally, once I partnered with a local developer and got a real sense of what the property was worth, we ended up getting a contract price, and it was actually option to purchase for $2 million.
Oh wow.
So we got it under contract for 2 million, and but from there it was all based on getting it rezoned. So we got it rezoned eventually after some soft costs. We had to hire an engineer, develop plans, basically come up with a concept to present before the city. And this took probably 8 or 9 months. So through all this, I'm learning a ton. I've never developed a property. I've never learned how to get entitlement for and change of zoning, and all these things that like are new to me but are highly valuable skills in real estate.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, we got the deal done. I assigned it to an end developer, walked with $250,000, and the guy sold his property, and it was a clean deal.
Nice, dude.
Good little wholesale deal. I wish they were all like that.
Yeah. All home runs, right?
Exactly.
So the name of my channel is Good, Bad, and Ugly. Do you happen to have a story that didn't end up as well?
The first thing when you say ugly that comes to mind, so that I had a 5-unit. It was an old Victorian in this little town pretty close to me. I already mentioned I was managing the property. So it was a rundown place. The guy who I bought it from, he was a drug lord, just rough. He didn't, no vetting of tenants, anything. He just let anyone come there. And so I'm managing this property, and I get a call from one of the tenants, and they're like, "Hey, there's a dead dog on the porch." I'm like, "There's a dead dog on the porch?" What do you mean? And like I said earlier, I'm from Wisconsin, right? So it's wintertime, and this thing's sitting frozen in a cardboard box on the deck.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was like, man, I never thought I'd ever get this call.
Right.
And so one of the tenants there, she did have a dog, and I had to go up and knock on her door, and I'm like, "Hey, you can't, I'm sorry about your dog. That's unfortunate, but you can't leave a dead dog on the porch like that. It's just, that's not okay."
Right.
And so that she biggered with me. She argued like, "Well, what am I supposed?" Just like she couldn't solve the problem. She couldn't figure it out. She didn't want to pay to have it cremated, and so after going back and forth for a while, she's just like, "Okay, fine, I'll take care of it." So the next day I come back, and she puts this dog in the back of her car. It's just sitting in she's riding around town with the dog in the back of her car. And it's like, man, I got to figure out how to screen these people better. So, this was an inherited tenant, but
right.
Anyway, as far as other stories of ugly, I talked a little bit about it, but when you're working, probate or inheritance leads, they kind of overlap. You're inserting yourself into a really painful situation, right?
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I have to deal with and overcome is, people are frustrated. They're mad at being marketed to on this list, and I do it in a very polite, good, general way, but that I can be as polite as I want. They still have that resounding pain that they have from losing a person that they love, that's irreplaceable. And
right.
For me, getting yelled at, getting people's frustration around what, the love that they felt for this person, and me wanting to talk about their real estate is a common hurdle that I consistently have to, work and get over. And it's like in any sales process, the best salespeople can take the people whom they represent an evil force to them. You walk into a sales room and no, hey, I'm just looking. The best salespeople are the ones that can transition that conversation into one of, I'm going to help you get what you want, not because of what I need. It's because, it's a service to you, not to me. And so that's been a really cool challenge that I've had to just constantly push up against of trying to get these people to, kind of change their hearts and how they feel towards me, because I want to talk to them about this problem around real estate, but I'm the evil guy for asking the question.
Sure.
That's been a really meaningful change in my sales process, because that's all we are, really. It's like, we're salespeople. We're selling what we do, what we can do for someone else, and whoever's best at that is going to be the most profitable.
Absolutely. So to ask you to try to drop a little bit of a nugget for everyone, can you give us an example how a an investor could approach a person that's going through this type of tragedy in a respectful way that may help them increase their chances of getting that conversation further down the road?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of people ask me for my script, or like what that is, and I don't really have a script,
Sure.
but I have a loose framework that I follow, and it works pretty darn well. And that's this is when someone says, after I ask them, like, are you interested in selling your property? I know this is out of the blue. My name is Micah. I'm a local investor. Um, and they're raving mad, they're frustrated, and I just let them yell at me. I listen to them and I acknowledge them. I mirror back to what they're saying, their pain points, what's hard. And if you let people do that long enough, the storm will blow over. um, and then from there, you can ask some triggering questions, or make a statement around what they might be going through. And then all of a sudden, instead of them being mad at you, they're mad at the situation that you're shining a light on. And
Yeah.
then you can work with them to be, I guess, solving a problem rather than acknowledging a problem.
Absolutely.
So that's one component, especially when someone's frustrated. But if someone gets on the phone and they're like, yeah, maybe I want to sell, or yeah, I'm going to sell this property, I don't talk about the property. I basically back up and I say, well, what's the situation here? I
Right.
open-ended questions to try and get them to tell me whatever is top of mind for them. Because if you do this right, they're going to tell that you actually care, which is really important. Like, I want folks to be, I want them to know, like, and trust me, because
Sure.
that's what we all do business with, folks that they know, like, and trust. And so by asking open-ended questions, they don't, we can't help but kind of, for you, if I'm like, hey, tell me about your business. And then you start elaborating on your business and going into it. And I'm just like, nodding my head and agree, that is amazing. I can't believe you did that. And, that's going to encourage you to share more and more and more. And so the more I can draw out of this person, the good things they've done, or what they're feeling, what's happening, the more reciprocity that creates, and the more rapport that I'm going to have with this person. And I'm not even, saying anything other than agreeing with them and asking questions about them. Because in this world right now, in the world of AI, in the world of, mass marketing, like, people want to be dealt with by people. And so if you actually have focus, intention on listening to someone, hearing them, responding to them, that is a finite resource that can be your superpower. You're going to have more friends and you're going to do more deals.
Totally agree. 100%. I think the best conversation I've had with a potential seller was we spent a whole hour and a half talking about everything but the purchase of their home. And then they are the one that actually brought to me. He's like, we've been talking for an hour and a half and we haven't even talked about price or, well, I said, we can if we want to, but we were having such a great conversation. I didn't see the need to go back to it. And uh, that was it started off as a good story, horrible ending. They decided to go with a different
Oh,
investor
really?
after I prevented foreclosure on them twice. So um, lesson learned, right? Almost was that closed quickly. Trying to
Yeah.
get them to sign a contract. I was more worried. I was more focused on helping them than trying to get them to sign a contract. So
Yeah.
um,
And it's a fine line. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, help first, but ultimately where we make money as investors is getting that executed contract.
yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Micah, I like to bring value to my guest. If somebody wanted to sign up for your service, or at least inquire of how it could benefit them, how can they reach out to you, or how can they get on your list to get subscribed for the service you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest way is just actually go to our webpage, usleadlist.com. Basically, it's going to take you to a form page. It'll have you click on the areas of interest and sign up. Otherwise, you could email me. It's my name, Micah at usleadlist.com. I'm happy to connect you and just see if there's availability. We do have an upper limit for how many people we allow to be in any given county, and so some places are sold out.
Awesome. So that means to you guys that are watching, you need to reach out now, not wait, because if you wait, you may not have the opportunities you're looking for, and lose an opportunity to work with Micah and his team. So, Micah, thank you so much for making time for me today, man. I know you're real busy, and I think everybody learned a lot where you can kind of balance providing a service and being somebody who takes advantage of the service. And the nuggets you dropped, especially as far as being compassionate to people when talking to them, but that are going through a tough time in their lives, from the list that you provide. So I appreciate you coming out. To my audience, I appreciate you. Keep on following me. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks so much, Jose. Pleasure.